Hey guys, it's Jim here, and welcome back to another week of Would I Rebuy This Guitar? And today's guitar is a guitar that's been on my mind a lot, probably for the last month or so. That's a Gibson Les Paul Studio Lite. There have been a few times I've talked about my first real Les Paul on this channel. This was it. I purchased this guitar when I had given up with Fender, as far as trying to find that big, meaty rock sound. I tried Tele Deluxes, Tele Customs with humbuckers. I've tried Strats with HSS. I tried everything, man. None of it was doing it for me. And the key to me with Les Pauls has always been the weight. And the worst is, my favorite Les Paul design ever is a Les Paul Custom. And after you just heard me say that about the weight, you can imagine it's not a guitar that's just meant for me. It's not in the cards. They simply weigh too much. But I bought this Studio Lite because it was 7.8 pounds. And on paper, I was like, oh, this looks like it might fit the bill really well. It had an ebony board on it, not the rosewood. It wasn't bound. The hardware was black. And it was this really nice kind of plain looking blue, but I really enjoyed the way it looked. And it kind of didn't draw a ton of attention to me when I was taking it out to go and playing shows, which was also, to me, a bonus. Now, all these years later, those guitars from that era, not just the Lights, those Studios from the early 90s are very, very highly sought after because they do use the higher quality ebony fingerboard on them. They say that it's a little bit of a turning point in, the quality of the Gibsons that were being produced at that time compared to other periods, which, we all know that every company has its ups and downs. Fender's no different from that when it comes to time periods that may be better or worse to be buying from. But this was an excellent example of a guitar. And I really enjoyed playing it. I loved the way that this thing sounded with gain. I get giddy thinking about it. And I've always been chasing it afterwards because it didn't sound as normal as like a Les Paul standard. And I'll explain that because a normal Les Paul standard has a little bit more oomph to it. Not that this was lacking in the bottom end or anything like that, but I think the fact that it was a thinner body and obviously super weight relieved on top of it, the highs came out a lot nicer. It was a lot smoother in that sense. And a guitar that reminds me of that guitar tonally that I have now is the McCarty 594 Double Cut. It really gives me that vibe when I hit the gain of that Studio Lite. I wrote a lot of rock songs using this guitar. Anything from that kind of like late 60s, just a little bit of grit to it, to all the way full on like aggressive strung out style punk rock, and it excelled at all of it. It was lightweight. I could stand for hours and play that guitar, and back then I didn't have as bad of back problems. I do have a bad disc in my back, which kind of, if you didn't know that, would explain why I'm really picky on weights of guitars. And even the S2, that weighs just over 8 pounds, and after about 45 minutes of playing it, I'm just like, yeah, like it's not the best on my back anymore. It's just when you age and you don't fully take care of yourself for X amount of years, there's not just a switch you can flip and have things suddenly feel better outside of, medicating yourself, whether it's through healthy ways or unhealthy ways. And this Les Paul was one of the only guitars I didn't sell when I decided to move from Orlando, Florida to San Diego. I knew that it would be important to me and my writing, and it would also be important depending on what kind of band I made it into. Maybe I'd have to play something that was primarily rock and other stuff like that. But after about 4 years of having it, I found myself with an act that was primarily surf-based. It had a little bit of grit and gain in some of the songs, but I started shopping around for an offset. That led me to the Jazzmaster. I bought the Jazzmaster, and once I had gotten really serious with that band, I decided, what, I'm not going to play this guitar out live anymore, and I don't really see a point in having it because I wasn't trying to hoard guitars anymore. So I sold it. I didn't need to sell it. I didn't need the money. I just kind of made an adult decision that probably most normal guitar players make. I'm not a normal guitar player, but most normal people, they say, I'm not using it anymore. I'll just sell it, whatever. I can buy another one later. And lo and behold, that leads me to now. And the market, when I sold that guitar, I think I sold it for $800 shipped. Man, how times have changed. You can't get one of those, especially in that blue, unless you order it from overseas. It's going to cost me about $1,500 to $1,600, and what I say, it's worth that much money. For the nostalgia part, maybe, but as far as the overall quality goes, $1,500 for a Les Paul Studio, I think that's a little bit too much. But I miss this guitar greatly. And as much as I loved the McCarty 594, the single cut, I sold it yesterday. And it is what it is, man. I felt like it was too similar to the double cut, tonally. And if I had to choose between the two of them, there was two reasons I decided to sell the blue one and not the green one. I sold the blue one because, first of all, it wasn't given to me. That was a big factor in the decision to do it. And the other reason was because the green one's lighter and it was more comfortable to play. That like 3/4 pound, that makes a big difference nowadays. Like I said, got a herniated disc in my back, and that stuff happens and it affects day-to-day life. But I mean, it is what it is. I can't go back and unsell this guitar, but would I rebuy one? Yes, I would rebuy this guitar for $1,000 or less. And no, I didn't sell that guitar to rebuy one of these, although I do always have my eye open for those. It's one of the models that's on my kind of search thing in Reverb, so whenever one does get posted, I see it pretty quick when they're few and far between though. That's gonna wrap up this video. The Les Pauls have been on my mind, and the single cut, I just sold it, so I've just been thinking about them, and it just makes me sad because I just want a Gibson that's light. And I know it's so much to ask because it just goes against the basic construction of the model, but for me, I mean, I'd like that guitar back. I'd like any Les Paul, really, that was 7.5 pounds or less. But like I said, needle in a haystack kind of stuff. Maybe it'll happen one day, but I'm not going to hold my breath. And if you're anything like me, please leave a comment down below. Do you prefer lighter Les Pauls, or are you somebody that doesn't mind carrying around a bowling ball 10, 11 pounds? I mean, I can't do it, but all the power to you if you can. Let me know. Other than that, that's all I got for you guys today. Really just kind of mellowed out mood and really busy day. So if you like what I'm doing, leave me a like on the channel, subscribe, and we're gonna have plenty of quad cortex stuff this week. I promise tomorrow we are going to be doing our first capture. We're gonna do the OR15. I'm really stoked about that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Take it easy, you guys.